Hello and welcome, Emma. It's Nathan and Jim, your hosts of the Way Home podcast. This is part 2 of the first part of another episode.
Yeah. Again, we spoke with Zach Pitney, who is the son of Rescue Mission CEO Sherry Pitney, and he told us several stories of growing up around Rockford Rescue Mission and also just his own fascinating and inspiring story and some of the things that have happened to him in the past few years. So, we'll hear more from Zach, and we appreciate his time and his willingness to share some really personal stuff.
Yeah, so this is part 2. So go, if you're watching this now, be sure to go back and watch part 1 and then jump in right here. So here's our conversation with Zach Pitney.
So I'm thinking about your story as related to mission work that you and your family have done for generations, and wondering, does mission work open you to vulnerability for the same kinds of things that bring people to the mission?
Yes, and I'm so glad that you said that, because I don't, when I worked here, I didn't realize it, and to be honest, I hope I'm not putting any words in anybody's mouth, but I don't think, and this is encouragement for Nathan even too, I don't think, especially depending on the upbringing you had and which church or what vein of, Christianity you're raised in, the supernatural aspect of Christianity has really been watered down in general. But when you come to work here at the Rockford Rescue Mission, I don't think that people understand. They don't, and I can say that because I didn't at first.
Yeah.
There is such a large supernatural aspect to what you do when you work here and the things that you open yourself up to, that you're deceiving yourself if you think that the good things that happen here are because of you. Or the evil things that happen here too are because of you,
Or that you're bulletproof, right?
or that you're bulletproof. I mean, you helped my dad write that book, Rescuing the Raggedy Man. I mean, anybody can look at my family's life story and see, even my dad too, and just know that the supernatural aspect of Christianity is so powerful, and it's something we don't talk about enough. And I hope they do. I haven't been here since 2012. My hope is here that they really help the staff with that and the residents, because the supernatural aspect of things is a much larger part than what anybody realizes.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of anybody who might be listening to this at some point. You could say the mission staff needs heavy prayer.
Oh, when Paul, or as Paul or Peter, when he talks about, our battle's not against flesh and blood, principalities, powers, all those things. That's real, man. That's real. And we walk around every day and we act like not, but there is a war constantly going on in a realm that we can't see, and it's fighting for just your everyday for you.
In a place like this, you see it a lot more clearly, I think, because you see what the enemy has done to people.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it comes right in the door at you. I mean, the most foolish thing you could ever do if you were an employee here is to think that somehow I shouldn't say your words and things like that don't matter, because they do. But I mean, how many of us have heard sermon after sermon?
Yeah.
And, I mean, you can go on, but the way you live your life is so much more far impactful than anything that you could say to anybody on the street or anybody that comes in the door here. And yes, the people that support this mission, the best way that they could support it, other than obviously financially, man, is to pray. And pray boldly, not just pray and hope for things. Pray and enter God's throne room boldly like he asks you to. And really, really go to war for the people who work here when you can't. When you can't. If you're a donor or a person who can't physically be here every day, if you can't, that's the best thing that you could do, even more than give money, and physically try and make an impact here if you can,
and
if you're able to.
The inclination is, if you're not around this place, you think, well, I'll pray for the people that are coming to the mission. Of course. I mean, that goes without saying too, I guess, is you do that.
Yeah.
But the staff here and anybody who is involved in frontline ministry, this is so different than working at a church, right? Or, any ministry where you're pretty insulated from some of the junk that is part of the culture, I guess.
I mean, most people here, I would think, like I said, I probably know very few of the staff here anymore, but I mean, all of them have families that they go home to.
Yeah.
And if we really truly bear one another's burdens, like the word says, they're bearing that burden when they go home and minister to their families as well. So, yeah, they need your prayer.
Yeah, and the verse you mentioned just about recognizing what the enemy, how that's involved in there, reminded me just of when I started here, and it was just a couple weeks in. I grew up working for my church, and knew pastors. I was always around. We had many different pastors, church, and missionaries. That was one of the blessings growing up with my family being involved in church so much, was got to meet all different types of ways that ministry happens. So I was very aware of how there is an enemy, but at working here in the nonprofit parachurch setting, it was very different being able to fully interact with the people that were directly helping, and it was very much so that there's an enemy that comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and you really see all the different aspects of that, whether it is directly in just the corruption of this world and just depravity of poverty or suicide or drug addiction. And there's so many different aspects that or even just divisiveness that you see within in any levels of people that it can show up in. So there's just such a reality, I feel, that you get it when you see kind of the world through a different lens when you either serve or work at a place like this.
And there are people too, there are people that come through these doors too, just like a wolf in sheep's clothing, like you'd think in any church. There's people that come in this door too that have a mission to steal, kill, and destroy.
Sure.
Under a facade of trying to get their life together or whatever else. And they might, I'm not saying they actively come in here realizing that, but there's people that come in here to do just as much evil as the good that's tried to be done here. We're all used as instruments in one way or another. Our goal is to always be used as God's instrument, but once again, the supernatural aspect, there's instruments of evil too that are here just as well.
Yep.
Yeah, you see that with Jesus and his disciples, where Peter was, I think it was Peter, was like John, or someone like that, and it was like, Satan, get behind me, and it was like even someone like that, of how much we look up to them, could be still used just in his own personality and temperament, and in a ineffective way, and not within God's plan or will.
Yeah, and then praying for the staff, you definitely need to pray. When you pray for the staff, you definitely need to pray too that God would be glorified in everything that they do, because you have to be spiritually vigilant at all. You should be in your life at any time, but here probably more so than anywhere else.
Discerning and
very discerning,
being aware of a lot of that. Yeah, good thoughts.
You got to be very discerning.
I was thinking about you, Zach. A lot of times when I'll interview, especially guys who go through the life recovery program here, they'll talk about the loss of a parent as being just a defining moment in their life. And you obviously lost your dad when you were 20 or 21. And we can go as far into this as you're comfortable going.
Nothing bothers me.
Tell me a little bit about, how you dealt with that in light of what some of the other stories around the mission here are, where it just waylaid guys and they really didn't recover till they came here, to get help.
Yeah, I don't mean to diminish any of those stories or anything like that. It has a huge impact on your life. I'm not going to sit here and say that it doesn't, but I think if anybody were to know my dad when we were growing up, or knew my family kind of in the more intimate moments in any way, shape, or form, people would probably have known that, long before he passed, my dad had a lot of addiction problems. And I love my dad. It rocked me, of course. But it's kind of odd to say that I was 21 when he died. And if it makes sense, you're raised in a place like this that's a place of restoration, right? So you always have constant hope for people. It doesn't always end that way. I heard a couple podcasts ago with you talking about people you interviewed for the rescuer that have died.
You were showing me names on the wall of people who are no longer with us. Yeah.
So you always have this hope, right, that it's going to be different. The odd thing with my dad was, for one of the first times in my life, I really didn't know if that hope of restoration was really going to happen or not.
Yeah.
And I think in God's own way, he was preparing me. I didn't know he was going to die, obviously, but I think God was preparing me to not have some sort of false hope that all this restoration was going to happen. We were going to live happily ever after. And, Perry Pitney's going to, have a moment of repentance like I did. And, all those things. So it did rock my world, Jim, but it to be honest with you, you heard my testimony. It rocked my world in the sense of it gave me more passion to do what is right.
Yeah.
And to not fall, even though I did eventually, but at first it gave me even more passion to not fall into those temptations and lose my life, basically, lose my mind. It did the total opposite for me. It, Scared Straight, the old show where the kids go to prison. And it almost did a Scared Straight to me, to be honest. I told you guys, full disclosure for me. My dad told me one time, not too long after he got back from rehab, we used to fight a lot. Because, I love my dad, but he used to do some of the most boneheaded things. But just to give you some humor real quick, I say that in all fairness I'm working on being more honoring of my parents. And I saw a meme the other day that rocked my world that made me just say, give your parents a break. It's their first time at life, too.
Yeah.
It's their first time at life, too. So, he said something, if there was anything that bothered me and hurt me and maybe psychologically caused anything, was he was really trying to get his life back in order. He had gotten back from rehab, and he basically had relapsed and started living the same life that he did before.
Yeah.
He's addicted to prescription pills, really bad. Heavy drinker, it's where we get it from. And I remember us talking, and I get it now that I've gone through my own addiction. I get it. I get this phrase now. I didn't get it at the time. He said, Zach, I've hurt you so much, and you've grown up so fast that I don't feel like I have a second chance with you.
Wow.
I don't feel like I have a second chance with you. I think you're old enough now, because I think he died when I was 20, so this is probably 17 or 18.
Yeah.
He said, I don't think that I have a second chance with you. You're strong-willed, you're very independent, and all the mistakes that I made, I'm trying to make sure I don't repeat those with your brother. And that hurt, man.
Yeah.
That hurt. So if there's anything that hurt me, or like people come in the mission, they say with death, my biggest wish was that we could have had some, final moments to where we could have maybe sorted that out before he died. Because as much as he felt that way about me, I didn't want to feel that way about him. I wanted to feel like I still needed my dad.
Yeah.
So that's probably what's hurt the most, is I've been figuring out life, especially having kids and things like that. Like a lot of people that come to the mission, I've been figuring out life absent an immediate father figure.
Yeah.
And even when he was my father figure, even though he died when I was 21, I mean, he had severe problems from the time I was, 14, 15.
Some pretty important years.
All the way through
Yeah.
21, yeah. I mean, he was just trying to survive some years.
Yeah.
So,
You've mentioned that you're nothing like your parents. In some ways, I think you are, but
Little bit.
in some ways, you're definitely not. Has it been a conscious walk away from, let's just even say, the mission? Because there would be people who would say, well, Zach's going to take this over when Sherry
Yeah.
retires, or, there's, I'm sure whether that pressure was obvious or not, there's sort of this public aspect to your family's life where you sort of feel like, oh, is this my responsibility now, or what's that been like?
I'd be lying if I told you I probably didn't feel like that in my 20s. I mean, another part of the history of the mission is I just didn't, show up and start working in the men's program. I started, you mentioned on a podcast that you remember, the Mission Mart over on Kishwaukee. It used to be called Keepers Unlimited. Do you remember that? My
Yeah,
dad
I
used to
do.
come up with those goofy names.
I do.
Keepers, who says Keepers Unlimited, Dad? But I started there when I was 15, doing the donations, working in the back room, sorting clothes, shoes. I mean, just like everybody else would work there. I started driving one of the mission's big CDL trucks. The funny thing is, they didn't realize that you had to have a CDL to drive those big trucks, so I got pulled over by the Illinois State Troopers.
Now you know.
Hauling clothes back and forth when they had the store in Rochelle. Here I am, 18 years old, driving a big CDL truck, and the state troopers got portable scales set up, and they're like, do you realize that you just have a normal, Class E driver's license? I didn't know I needed a CDL. Nobody told me.
Class
It's a good time to figure that out. Yeah.
So, I mean, I started there, then worked in the maintenance department. I think actually, man, good dude, Jeff Richardson, I think still works here.
Yeah.
So Jeff Richardson, our office was the little area back there where you guys store a lot of toiletry items and stuff now behind the front desk as our office. So I worked in maintenance, and I went to Rock Valley College. I mean, I don't know why I even went to Rock Valley because school was not a strong suit. But I went to Rock Valley College during the day. Then I was like the night maintenance man. So I would paint these offices when people were at night. If toilets were plugged from, somebody trying to flush whatever down the toilet, I was the night guy, and I worked maintenance for a while. And then I got a job. Well, I shouldn't say got a job. They kind of created a spot for me in the men's program. Back then they used to call it they called me a house coordinator. I was basically,
Yeah.
I was basically the guy that made sure they got to all their appointments on time. Back then, we had a full house. I mean, 50-plus guys with the waiting list for years. It was great. But, I used to do the room checks, get guys to their appointments on time, make the weekly chore schedules, approve passes. I mean, just all the menial tasks, and the other people that work there, were the counselors and the guys that taught classes and things like that. So I did that for a couple years. And I think my first kind of wanting to get out of the shadow of what you're talking about, I worked for the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department. That's what I went to Rock Valley for. I wanted to be a policeman when I was growing up as a kid. And started at Rock Valley with the criminal justice program and got a job starting out like they do a lot of the sheriffs, started out in corrections. Start there and then put your name in the hat for patrol division, and that's just kind of how it works. But I made it over there. I think I only made it over there 6 months. Whether it was because a lot of the people over there already knew me personally or things like that. If you want to pray for people, pray for your law enforcement too and your corrections officers. That was another heaven meets hell horrible job. And I wanted to leave the sheriff's department, and I asked her if I could have a job back. And she's like, well, yeah, you can go work at the thrift store again, right, where I started. I'm 20 years old.
Okay.
And I said, okay. And she goes, you can fill out an application at SOS Staffing, the temp agency. I said, I can. She goes, yeah, we'll hire you like we do everybody else through the temp agency. And if it works out, we'll hire you on staff again. So I did like what everybody else does. Went through the temp staffing agency, worked at Mission Mart again, doing the same thing, driving the truck, taking donations, and it was a good time, man. It
With
was
the
actually a
license
really
this
good time.
You had the license.
I had the
this
license this time.
Good job. So
No
you,
pullovers from the state troopers
Progress.
this time. And then I got hired. They had a gentleman named Chris Eldridge. You remember
Chris.
LaWanna
Yeah,
Eldridge?
Sure.
And Chris, they were looking for a director of programs at the time, so somebody that would oversee men's program and crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I probably shouldn't have applied for the job, but I applied for it. They gave me an interview. Of course, I didn't get the job. Chris Eldridge got the job, and that was good. And but they kind of made me Chris's, I guess, right-hand man for better. My official title was like associate director of programs.
Yeah.
But what I was able to do during that time was I worked with Chris, who had no prior experience in the recovery industry. He was a youth pastor and still is to this day, really good youth pastor.
Mm-hmm.
So he brought a big pastoral aspect of it, which I don't have. But I brought a realness of life, Christianity aspect of, practicality and understanding where people are at when they come through these doors in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage anybody that comes from a church background, it takes a little while to learn that. You have all these preconceived notions in your head, but a lot of them are rocked when you come here. But yeah, but anyway, helped him. And what I was able to do, I created a classroom schedule. I helped facilitate back then it was called the New Day program. Your first 30 days you spent down in crisis to dry out. Lou Jean Batten was in charge of the New Day program, and then I did intakes every 30 days for people who wanted to join the year-long life recovery program.
Mm-hmm.
And, work shifts in crisis, it didn't matter what I did as long as I could live with any individual that came here, and I loved it. I loved it. I did. Looking back on it now, if I really am honest with myself, I left and went to work for the railroad more than anything just to prove that what I can do anywhere.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
I was made for certain things in life, and it doesn't matter what industry I'm in, I'll be successful, and you'll see. And I was. I mean, as far as the corporate, not corporate necessarily, but as far as the world standards, I was really successful. But yeah, she never made me feel like this was somewhere I should take over or follow in that vein. And I'm glad that she didn't, because even though things went south somewhat in my personal life, I'm glad for these years. It's been 15 years now. I'm glad for these years because I know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I was here at the mission the whole time, if I would ever completely come to a place where I knew who I was apart from here.
Almost like you're living someone else's identity in that scenario, huh?
Well, I think about my dad.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been 20 years, and he's not here, so I don't necessarily want to put words in his mouth, but driving on here yesterday, I was thinking a lot about my dad, and I don't think a lot about him anymore. Mm. But I was thinking maybe this question would come up, and so I wanted to have a good answer, and it hit me like a ton of bricks that's what happened to my dad. The idea was that that's how it was going to work. He was going to work here. He's Joe Pitney's son, and it's just that's how it works.
Yeah.
And so growing up and doing that, because him and my mom lived in Kansas City. They went to William Jewell Bible College. Then my grandpa got Parkinson's in 84, 85. And they came here to assist when the mission was on Madison Street with the ministry, because they didn't know, obviously, at the time what the Parkinson's was going to do.
Yeah.
But then, next thing you know, they never left. So my mom's never known anything but ministry.
Mm-hmm.
My dad never knew anything but being the son of an evangelist, because Gio was an evangelist when he came here to Rockford.
Fiery.
Very fiery.
Yeah.
Very fiery. And so I'm grateful now, because I think my dad didn't have a chance to find his identity because he was very musical. Back then, that's frowned upon, Love James Taylor, the hippie music,
Yeah.
things like that. That's frowned upon, fundamental Baptist churches. He was the first son of Perry Pitney. So whether they said it or not, he
Geo
probably
Pitney.
felt I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Geo Pitney. There was probably the weight of the expectation that you had to live a certain way, speak a certain way, dress a certain way, live your life in a certain way. And he was never able to see who he was as a person apart from this place. And I think that was very detrimental to him. He got to do it one time, and that's when he went to rehab out in California. And that changed his life.
Toward the end of
In a
his
good way.
life, too, when he and I were working on the book together, he had just gotten into the art side of things with
Yeah.
the sculpture and things, and that
Yeah.
was bringing out new things
Yeah.
for him, too. But same thing you're talking about. It's suddenly it's not all wrapped up in what your dad did.
Yeah, my dad, just like anybody at the mission, or just like I would tell you too, my dad struggled or didn't understand, much like myself, for a period of time in my life, who his true identity was, that he is a child of God, first and foremost. And I believe he really struggled with his identity as being a child of God first and foremost, and then how that fits in his everyday life, because maybe that did not mean working at the Rockford Rescue Mission. Maybe
Yeah.
that did not mean those things, but he was so ingrained here, he didn't know how to live any other life. So I think for anybody, I think it's been great for me, if you're, especially if you're in ministry, a pastor's kid, like you said you were, whatever else. I didn't like it at the time when I left, because I thought, like what you're saying, oh, this should probably be just a hereditary thing and that moves on, down the Pitney line.
And I'm not saying that, but I wondered
Yeah.
if you thought there was an
you have those
expectation,
thoughts. Yeah, you have those thoughts from time to time. Did I want that? No,
Yeah,
I'd have
yeah.
been fine doing anything here.
Yeah.
But you think maybe that could happen. But I was able to find who I am, and I'm grateful for that, because I get to come back here and sit with you guys, and Nathan doesn't even know who I am. And that's good.
We just met today.
Yeah, because he doesn't have any preconceived notions, because I'm Sherry's son. He just knows me as Zach, and I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And what I do, good or bad, does not reflect on the mission or reflect on anything but me. And I really, really enjoy that.
Yeah.
I do. I enjoy that. It's, if you spend any time around me, it's not a big secret that this city is not at the top of my Forbes list of places that I would
I
want to
remember
live
when
ever again.
When I lived in Texas, you gave me a call one time and said, you got out of Rockford or something, right? And I thought, oh, yeah, I guess I did. And then I'm back. But
And now I'm back.
Yeah.
I mean, but the things that make this city not desirable are the biggest reasons why. The mission needs to shine the brightest light that it can in a place like this,
Yeah.
because when you spend any time away from here and you come back. My buddy from high school moved to Seattle. He used to beg me. He'd say, "Get out of there, Zach. Get out of there." And when you live here and you grow up around this kind of environment, this is a very blue collar city. Christianity is somewhat a part of the culture, but it's factory work, the West Side with all the drugs. I mean, when you grow up here, you don't realize kind of how strange this city is. And he said to me, you need to leave, man. He said, that place has a dark cloud of evil and depression over it like you would never know unless you leave. And so when we come back here, it's kind of interesting. We're here. I know this is being recorded, but we're over Labor Day here in September. This city, as soon as you get within the city limits, man, this city needs Jesus. It's still
it's just
hurting.
palpable when you come
Oh
back. Huh?
man, every place does, but this is still a hurting community that the mission can impact greatly. If people would get out of the mindset that this is a place for people with addictions and just look at this as a place of, I don't know what the best way to put it would be, that this is a place of just pure restoration. Take the addiction part out of it, man. Just this is a place of restoration, and how that could even impact the quote unquote church culture here in this city.
Wow.
Yeah, it's whenever nobody, when anybody asks me in all my travels over the years, working in different places, like, never heard of Rockford, Illinois. It sounds bad. I used to say, imagine Detroit, Michigan. So everybody knows Detroit. I said, but imagine that on a scale of about a third. That's Rockford. Especially when I grew up, when you're talking about mission history at Madison Street. Nathan's probably too young to remember this, but Jim probably knows. When I was growing up there, nobody came downtown. Like, you guys are building stuff on the west side, the Justice Center.
It was
you see
tumbleweeds. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all types of stuff.
Nobody came downtown. Caddy corner to the mission, I could look out my bedroom window and see the surf club. The strip club. It was a strip club. There was a strip club over there. It was nothing but hookers, drug dealers. I mean, nobody came downtown. Nobody crossed the river. And I've never lived on the east. I've never lived in the high rent district on the east side of the river. Never. I call it the high rent district. But I
think there's still that sentiment among older people, especially, who, even because of the mission's location, I've known of people who are afraid to come down here.
Really?
To volunteer or something. Yeah.
I'll give this. The older I get, my dad was a visionary. I give him this. Everybody thought he was nuts when he was like, because this used to be a Bill Hembrow car dealership. So this block was actually, can you imagine them actually selling legitimate? He was a GM dealer, like out there, Lou Backrow. Like, it was a legitimate car dealership on the west side.
Yeah.
And they went out of business. And he's like, we can get this building for a steal. I remember as a kid, we can get this for like nothing because the west side's dead. Nobody wants to be here. And everybody thought he was nuts. And then my mom still has it over there. Jim's probably seen it. He made this little drawing, a City of Hope. He wanted to make this, this huge campus by 2020. I mean, not all of it's been materialized, but he was a visionary, so I give him that. Everybody thought he was nuts because downtown was bad, but even just a couple blocks over here was like literal suicide because there's nothing but gangbangers and violence because Fairgrounds is right behind you.
Yeah, he called it a war zone at the time they announced that they were going to do this place.
Yeah, but I mean, look at it now. He was 25 years ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting seeing too, because like among like people that have been around the Rockford area, my family like shared used to be in Rockford in the 80s and 90s, and we're working in the city now. Like, you see elements of that if you're really looking, but I feel like that can really hide. And there is the elements that I've known when I'm talking to pastors. It's that like shroud of like poverty, and that poverty mindset just within the city, and here in kind of northern Illinois too. You get kind of some of the weird mix of it too. But yeah, like if just Rockford doesn't seem as bad as everybody talks about it. Specifically, the fact of like, I'm seeing a lot of the improvement now, and that of the work that people have poured a lot of effort, whether it's in office or in places like this and the different nonprofits, and that there is a lot of improvement that I'm like, oh, hey, it's just another city now. So
I moved back here from Texas, and we chose to live in Rockford rather than one of the outlying communities. We're going to invest in this city. This is our home.
The Rockford Rescue Mission, changed the name, and I use a railroad analogy for this. I used to, when I first started on the railroad, we call them old heads, guys that have worked there for a long time, and I work with this old head. And I was like, man, we go to the worst places in every city we're in, dude. This, when are we going to go somewhere nice? And he goes, young fella. He said, if you got the money, you going to buy a house next to the railroad tracks? No. So we ain't going to ever be in any nice places. So I think about it. The Rockford Rescue Mission is never going to be on the, Golden Mile or whatever it is in Chicago, the Miracle Mile. A place like the Rockford Rescue Mission is never going to be there. But it's because, just like the railroad, it's because the work that you do. It's the work that you do. So the goal, obviously, is to not need a place like this, right? The goal would someday be to not have a place like this, but we know that'll never happen, but we should always try to strive for that goal.
Your dad used to say, if Jesus were walking the earth today, this would be where he would hang out.
I think so.
Because Jesus hung out around people who were hurting and people who had big needs and people who wanted something better.
If you work here or you're around here any length of time, like you have been writing and things like that,
Yeah.
if you spend any length of time here, and this is no disrespect to volunteers who just come on Thanksgiving or Christmas, because that just, people get in the giving spirit during that time, and it is what it is. But if you spend any length of time here and live life, I don't like to use them or these people, or I've never felt that way because I was born with them, with this. But if you spend any time here and it's genuine time that you spend here, it's impossible. It's impossible for it not to impact your life and not make you evaluate, your spiritual life. If it doesn't make you think, at least every time you leave here, you might as well not come back. If anybody is listening to this that is on the fence about coming down here when you have the opportunity and pouring your life into somebody here, I mean, make the jump, man. Do it, because in all reality, you're going to come here thinking that somehow you're going to come to help the people that somehow are residents here. But I guarantee you, you're gonna have much more of an impact on your life than anything you're going to say for anybody here.